my sweetheart.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Really great.
For what?
The show is absolutely.
Is it?
You
I haven't seen it.
No.
No. Not yet. Have you got a catalog?
No.
We'll get one.
Yes.
Just mention my name at the desk.
Yes, yes.
Because that's got everything I could tell you.
Yes.
All the reminiscences from when I was young. There's 24 pages of paintings in color, the rest in black and white. Hi, Cass. How are you? Good to see you. Nice indeed to see you.
We haven't seen you for
I was
years.
just thinking about you yesterday. Yeah. Just thinking that so damn many years since I've seen you or Harold or Tom or anybody. Where's the time gone, Cass? I got a chuckle out of that because they hadn't paid any attention much up to that point.
When you're painting, say pictures such as this that later on you give musical titles to, do you have music going?
Oh yeah, just normal background music. It's insidious, just like Muzak. First thing I do in the studio is to plug in the radio, get the music started. I've always done it, I don't know why. It drives my wife crazy when I'm home.
Could I please?
Oh yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Nationalist landscape? You mean? Well, let's not. Let's start right at the beginning. When are you on? Are you on? You are, okay. Well, one of the biggest problems I have for the last 10 or 15 years, and it's amazing to me that people even in Toronto that I know won't believe that I was born here in 1909 down at the beach, and I was brought up in Montreal up until I was 19, and at age 17, finishing high school, I went to work as an apprentice in an art department at Rapid Grip Company in Montreal. My father was the manager of it. And in those days, you see, with artists or people who wanted to be artists, you couldn't make a living out of painting at all. So this goes on until, the mid-40s anyway, where everybody, including the group of 7, they worked in art departments for part-time anyway, or they taught, one or the other. And my first training was at night school in Montreal, where I started at $6 a week, and then I got a raise to $9 a week and things like that. After 2 years of that, my father shipped me up to Toronto to the head office of Rapid Grip with a bigger art department. I had $20 a week. And that was ample. And then the Depression hit, 1929, 1930. The idea was that I would go on to New York for a couple of years' experience. This is commercial now. But I had a job here, and jobs were scarce, so I just hung on. But spent my spare time, and a number of other artists, young artists did too, going to Ontario College of Art at night, 3 or 4 nights a week, drawing from the figure, with 2 ideas in mind. One was to improve my ability as an illustrator, and also for the sake of drawing and painting itself. So that went on for many, many years, and all we knew, really, was what was going on in Canada when it was very nationalistic indeed. Group of 7, of course, were the top boys, and anybody that was adventurous at all just oohed and awed at them and what they did. And a lot of young painters that I know these days, they've said to me many times, well, God, it must have been dumb and dull in those days. It was not. It was very, very exciting indeed, because that's all we knew. So the commercial thing went on with me right until 1968, as a matter of fact. I earned my living that way, married my wife, who was a Montreal girl that I knew, and we started to raise kids, and we have 3 boys, and they're married, and we have 9 grandchildren. So I earned all my money commercially to pay all the bills and raise them with no squawks whatsoever, and all my spare time was devoted to drawing and painting and illustrating and designing. Until, as I said, 1968, my paintings started to sell, first in New York, then in London, and then in Canada, which is the usual habit of Canadians. So I had enough money coming in that I could drop the advertising business for good, and since then I've been on my own with just painting to do. Now I want to jump back to about 1945. By this time I had been an elected member of all the art societies, and I was president of one and vice president of another, and so on and so forth. And then around 1944, 45, something happened in Canada. Life magazine came into publication coming in here, so did Time magazine, and so did the Skira art books imported. And Jesus, for the first time, we saw what was going on in the rest of the world. Now, this is something that the Group of 7, our seniors in a way, by a decade, never mentioned to us. You see, they'd all been to Europe, to London especially, and France. They knew all about the Impressionists and so on and so forth. And they knew also about the good American painters, but they never once told us, or Canada, where their influence had come from. Suddenly they were indigenous to Canadian soil, you know, self-taught and all this nonsense, because they picked it all up, you know, but never said a word about it. And I can't kind of blame them in a way, because they became kowdy-towed to all the way along the line. Well, some of us began to break off being influenced by the abstract art that we started to see in the Skira books, and I wondered, my God, when did this start to go on? In other words, Canada was missing the mainstream completely, and as a matter of fact, missed it much longer than the Americans. The Americans caught on to it in 1913 with the famous Armory show. But we started almost yearly visits to New York to see in the flesh what was going on, and it started to influence me especially like mad, to such an extent that, I don't know, I started to paint canvases that were semi-abstract, still with the figure in or the landscape in or something, but something was cooking. And my peers said, well, geez, what's the matter with you, Bush? You're going off the track here. And I don't know whether I was a little more adventurous than some of the other ones. For instance, some of my close friends to this day, like William Winter and others, have made their own success locally and are quite happy with it as Canadians. For some unknown reason, when I would look at my entries in the OSA, I'd be uncomfortable because they didn't look like the other guys. And I was killing myself trying to make my canvas, you know, be in with the boys. And I never could do it, which turned out to be the best blessing I could ever have as I started to develop, see? So we'll jump to 1953, when a number of painters, Harold Town and Bill Ronald especially, and myself, Oscar Kahane, and there were 11 of us at any rate, and we were all showing pretty abstract paintings in the OSA group shows, or the Academy shows, and they stood out like a sore thumb. So Bill Ronald got out of art school. His teacher, great teacher, was Jock McDonald, and he got a job with the Robert Simpson Company as a designer in the display department, you see. And one day he got this bright idea. They were going to put on a set of rooms, you know, showrooms. And he suggested, why not get some good modern abstract paintings, just to hang one in each room, see how it goes. They went for the idea. And there were 9 of us, I guess, or 7, I'm not sure which, that didn't know each other much. But we had to get together for a publicity shot for Robert Simpson Company at Roseborough's studio on Avenue Road. And he made this publicity shot for the newspapers. I had a meeting to go to. The others went to have a cup of coffee, and started to talk about the possibility that we'd like to see an abstract show for the first time, nothing else in it but abstracts. So I was the only artist with a dealer, which is Jack Wildridge of the Roberts Gallery, and his father was alive then, and a hell of a nice guy. So they said, well, Bush, you're the only one with a dealer. Why don't you see what you can do? So I went to Mr. Wildridge Sr. and put the proposition to him. I said, these are all good painters, but they're abstract, and Toronto hasn't seen a show with just abstracts in it. So he said, well, I'll trust you. Sure, I'll give you a show. So in 1953, we had our first Painters 11 exhibition. Actually, Walter Yarwood came up with a title, Painters 11, which seems close to the group of 7, but anyway, just for a gag, we did it. And we put on the first show, and that shook Toronto because the gallery has never been so filled for an opening in Toronto's history. And it upset everybody, critics and the older artists and everybody. So we got the hell pasted out of us in the press. That's what I thought. So we showed with the Wildridge Gallery 2 or 3 years, but then they gently asked us not to show because there were no sales. There might be 1 or 2, and they were losing money. So we were without a place to show until Bud Feely opened his Park Gallery on Avenue Road. And he did back us all with individual shows and group shows, and this went on till 1960. By that time, we'd lost Oscar in a motor accident, and somebody else died in there, too. And the numbers started to go down. But by 1960, we had our last meeting, and there was never any disagreement. These meetings that I usually called and held, I sort of acted as secretary and kept some sort of order or notes or something. Otherwise, you know, those guys, Tom Hodgson, she's... So, by 1969, we had the 1960 rather, we had the last meeting because there began sort of a feeling, well, the guys were going in their own directions, they were having their own shows, and one member, Walter Yarwood, was all for making it a national movement in the abstract only. But he was voted down, and the majority of us voted that we'd done the job we set out to do. Now we wanted just to go on our own. But now we got to regress a little bit to 1957 when we're still operating. Phil Ronald got fed up with Toronto completely. He hated it here. He was a furious and angry young man in those days, and what a painter. So he went to New York, and being the self-promoter, which he is and always has been, he wiggled his way in some way within a year or so to get Sam Coots, one of the best New York dealers.
He didn't wiggle. Come on, that's unfair.
Which Sam did, and liked it. But to make sure, he asked Hans Hoffman to have a look at Bill Ronald's work. Hans says, yes, he's a bright young guy, I'd take him. Then they went to Clement Greenberg, the very famous art critic in New York. And Clem liked it. So Bill Ronald had his first show.
Jim Sweeney was involved too.
So Jock McDonald went down for it. And at the party afterwards, Clem Greenberg came up to him and he says, "Hey, what's this place? It's Toronto? Or something like that?"
Oh, God, I know Toronto.
Well, he said, "What's going on up there that can produce, at his age, such a tremendous painter?" Well, Jock told him a little about Painters 11 and what we were doing and so forth. So Clem offered, he said, "Look," he said, "I'd like to come to this city of Toronto and just see these painters and see what they're doing." He says, "I'm just interested." He said, "I don't want any money, just my expenses." So Jock came back from New York and told me about it, and I said, "Gee, that sounds super." So I called a meeting of Painters 11, and Bill Ronald came up from New York for it, trying to talk us into having this man up here. That was the first meeting we ever had where there was any disagreement. And Harold Town says, "I refuse to show my paintings to any damned American art critic." That's Harold, see. Wally Yarwood, who always went with Harold, says, "Include me in." But then to give Harold credit, he said, "Now, if the rest of you want to go ahead with this idea, go ahead with it." And he said, "But just leave us out." The upshot was that we did go ahead with it. And in 1957, Mr. Greenberg and his new young wife, Jenny, came to Toronto. I met them at the station and took them to the Windsor Arms, and he was here with the plan of seeing each of us for a half a day each privately and look at our work and comment. Bill's argument for having him here was that he was so honest a critic that we couldn't help but benefit from it. And boy, is he honest, because to this day he'd knock the head off you if you ask him to look at some paintings. So Clem spent the half hour, or the half day rather, with each of us, you see. And I don't know what he said to the others. I only know this, that out of all of them, nobody paid attention except Jock and me. And I remember well the half day I spent with him in my studio at home, which is a small one. And I proudly showed him all my new work, you see, which was abstract expressionist influence and so forth. And he looked out the window and he said, "How old are you, Jack?" And I said, 48. He says, "So am I, and you should know better." He said, "Look what you're doing." He says, "My God, you people up here are scaring the hell out of me. You're so good. But what you're doing, Bush, is you're just taking all the hot licks from the New York painters, which is so easy to do."
Well, Jack was a little complimentary to me there. I would correct him one point. I didn't quite say that everybody was so good. I know Jack remembers me saying that. Actually, the other correction is, I didn't offer to go to Toronto. Bill Ronald suggested, put the idea in my head, and I said, "Fine, yes." Inviting myself would have been a little presumptuous, and but for the rest, yeah. The business with Jack started lunch. We got off the train when I hit it off with Jack. It was personal. It had very little to do with art at that moment.
The first day you met him here, what did he show you?
Well, I saw his oils and I saw his watercolors, and I thought the watercolors were far better. And indeed, I still think so. And I said that to Jack. I didn't have to pull punches. And he took it into account and thought, look, you know, we're not running yet, are we?
Yeah.
We are running now? Okay.
It's November 4.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's good.
Was that one of the ones you pointed out to?
It's, It may not have been one, but there were things similar to this. This was the direction I thought was...
This is November 12?
Yeah, they're still good.
And November 24.
Not that one so much.
No?
That's, I don't remember anything quite that landscapey.
And this is November 6th, which I think...
Yeah, it's one of those. Not too crazy about it. It's all right, though.
Yeah.
Oh, it was the group, the effect of the watercolors were, I remember, on the left wall of Jack's studio as you came in, right back here, and there he was. The oils were against the wall on the right. I remember his easel was somewhere in that neighborhood. Beautiful.
Yeah.
That must be a little later, isn't it?
No, it's
Yeah.
56.
Yeah. Okay. That's. And I know it wasn't all that dramatic and all that. Jack tells a story about my looking out the window and saying we're both the same age, and why the hell don't you get started, something like that. Well, we were able to talk that way, see? And but I did say, look at these watercolors and look at the oils now. Oh, for the rest, Jack went his own way.
You just grab that other end there. See, now this is one of the ones that I was referring to earlier, that I painted with thin oil, nothing on it, that scared the hell out of me, because it was so simple. 59, you see, that's even 2 years after Mr. Greenberg's first visit in 1957, because I'm in 1959. From there on, I was on my way.
Jack was an extraordinary colorist. Extraordinary. I mean, there are good painters who handle color well and all that, but Jack in color is something extraordinary. Anglo-Saxons weren't supposed or aren't supposed to have color. They're supposed to belong to the Latins or something. Nonsense. I just point to Bush or to Kenneth Nolan. Mm-hmm.
You may have something in your mind. You got that canvas there in front of you, blank. And you know just what you're going to do. And the first piece of color you put on there changes the whole thing. Your original concept can't work. The painting has to take over and almost tell you what to do from there in. That's about right, I think, guys? And if you're smart enough to pay attention to what that painting is telling you to do, you come out with a good painting.
When I first decided to become a painter, Jack was the first professional in the true sense, what I thought was professional, and he always carried that through, of how to work, of how everything went on. He was always right on that way, and you spoke to him that way, and those painter things were always on his mind when you could ask him questions about how do you do this or how do you do that. Just his attitude towards everything was very professional.
I met Jack, I guess, a number of years back when I came to the New School of Art. I met him in the Mirvish Gallery. But 5 years ago, I had the chance to work for Jack, and I worked as his assistant up until his death last year. And it was a great job. I enjoyed working with him. He was a pretty lively guy in his way, I'll tell you.
And I think I am in the unique position of having known Jack in the late 40s, early 50s. I knew him when he was a member of the Painters 11, when he was very much looked down on in the Toronto group of painters, I would say. But I saw the way he, in spite of all that, kept painting the way he knew he had to paint. In fact, I came across a letter of his the other day in which he said to me, the language is really very simple, but not everyone can read it.
In my old-fashioned or old-age view, art is just a continuing process. It's not something, it seems to be something new. But if you wait a bit, it's just a re-saying of the same thing over and over. It just keeps building on itself. And I think that same principle applies to good painters themselves as they continue on, that you wonder what the hell am I going to do next? Because you've run through a series, say, of 20 or 30 paintings. And because we paint not intellectually at all, at least I don't. I paint from my belly, as I call it. It's instinct plus a gut feeling. And many a time I've been nonplussed in the past. All right, what to do now? Jeez. And sure enough, something at the supper table or something will sort of click, and I'll make a little note or something. Gee, that's a possibility. We'll try that out. And it's led to this series that I'm on now. Just that simple, if you learn to trust it. It'll come sooner or later.
I would still go back to the school year. He was very clear with everything and very simple, but it was misleading. Somehow it's hard for me not to be emotional when I talk about Jack, because perhaps it was this simplicity and yet complexness, as if he was hiding his sophistication, his real wisdom, his real power as an artist. I think he was hiding it. He didn't want to create an aura about himself.
I came at painting, I had never gone to an art school. I had just loved looking at paintings. I'd always looked at paintings. I'd always really just been deeply moved by painting. And when I began painting and began showing, there were a lot of my friends who had gone to art schools and were very... I was really very nervous whenever they looked at my paintings. I thought they could see right through me and see how little I did really know. And I can remember Jack saying, well, don't you know, there are no rules. And suddenly when I began thinking about that, that completely freed me. That really gave me courage again.
And the worst that can happen is if it doesn't work. Tear it out, start over. The courage, which is difficult for young people, especially with the high cost of canvas, the unavailability of it, and the high cost of paints all rising. They get frightened of working on a piece of canvas about 10 feet by 6 feet, because instead of being worth $3 a yard like it was a couple of years ago, it's now $15 a yard. And they haven't got that much bread. See, so they tighten up a little. And you got to learn, like I had to learn, even though I didn't have the bread either, when I was looking after the kids and so forth. To get over that hump, it's only a piece of paper, it's only a piece of canvas. The worst that can happen is that you fall flat and you're behind. Well, okay, if you do, you do. You start over again. Once you get on that habit, you find you don't really fall flat at all. It'll work okay.
Then after my husband died, very suddenly, who was a friend of Jack's too, I just began painting just because I really felt like painting. I always wanted to paint, and suddenly the time presented itself. And Jack came to see me one day, and he saw the things, and he got very excited about them. I was really quite surprised. I didn't think of them. They were just things I felt very deeply. And he looked at them and said, they're beautiful. There's nothing else like this being done around here. You've got to start showing them. Well, I was just so surprised. At any rate, he arranged for and hung my first exhibition and even bought one of them. That nearly knocked me out.
That was one of Jack's big things, I guess, was how much he encouraged everybody, a lot of young painters and sculptors in town. He always came to people's shows, and he always commented on what he thought of them and, where he thought some improvements might happen and that sort of thing. And he was probably the only senior artist in Toronto who did that. All the other senior artists kind of stuck to their own studios and didn't really provide the encouragement that he did to younger and up-and-coming artists.
What I like about the scene at the moment is that there's at least half a dozen or 10 good, talented young artists like Alex here, with a good, I'd say what, Alex, up to 6, up to 10 years of serious work. And they've had their own one-man shows and things like that. And it's only a question of time until some gallery in New York's going to pick them up. And they're just waiting for it. And already we heard, what, of 2 last week? Or 1 anyway. Andre Fautou has got a gallery now. He's going to have his first New York show, Tibor de Knife. And the same thing is going to happen as would happen with me when I got my first show with Bob Elcon. Well, it was up to me to quit and go home or to stay with it. And I'm sure that's going to happen with Canadians if they've got the nerve and the ability to not hate Americans just because they're Americans, but to love art. And that's the place you go for the best there is in the world right now.
He's in that school of New York style painting, the Greenberg school of painting. I mean, that's, you know, that's where that style of painting comes. Whether that's a major form of painting or not, only time will tell. I mean, I have my doubts on certain things where Joseph is, you know, knows certain other things about it. So that's here.
We're in a time where anybody who does abstract art is called an American painter. I think it's just generally an anti-abstract art movement.
Yeah, but Jack was definitely in a Pacific school that you could call New York style of painting and a Greenberg painting.
I would disagree. I would say that Jack was more of a European painter. His roots were more to do with Miro and Matisse than with American painting.
I disagree. Jack, for me, is the epitome of Canadian art. He is the real Canadian artist. He got accused of being American, but that's
I don't mean
that's
American
not,
in that sense, Joseph.
That's very untrue. I think that if there is a Canadian tradition,
Red reds and green
Jack
greens.
started it.
And it's hurting the pictures a lot, I think. You know, there's a way of, it's like training, it's like an exercise. You bring the colors together in terms of dark and light. You know, not in terms of hue, but it's like taking the vermilion and bringing it closer to the brown. And light value. It's still a vermilion.
So they're totally alike, you mean?
Yeah. Well, we call it value.
Yeah, value.
Like the French do.
Mm-hmm. Goddamn corners, you know, the rectangle is a hell of a thing to deal with.
Yeah. You've got to take the chance of letting the picture flap. You know, the corners will flap, and you know, metaphorically, the whole picture won't be pinned down, and you'll be disturbed by that. But you let it, put the picture away for a couple of months and look at it again. So, yeah.
I spent an hour talking to the staff that conducts the tour, which gave them a lot of ammunition that they didn't know about. So, where do you want to go now? Anywhere special?
Yeah. Well, let's go into another room. We've been looking around here. God, what a crowd.
Yeah.
All females.
You know, I can't remember painting a lot of these damn things.
Yeah, I know.
I'll have to come back and see them. Did I do those? I had to admit I did.
It's the same way when you write.
Yeah, I'll bet it is.
That picture looks better here than it did at home. I always liked it at home, but it looks even better here.
It's
They
much better
put it in
place
McLean's, didn't they?
Yeah. That's one of the ones.
Yeah.
And this Carnegie one holds up well for me, too.
I think my smaller picture's better than Mike's.
Could well be. Could well be.
That's a honey, that one there. Both.
Which, the blue on the green?
And that, yeah.
How does the zip red hold up for you? Or
A
does
lot.
it?
Maybe the red runs over too far.
Maybe.
You know, I didn't realize how good that was the first time I saw it.
I didn't know.
God damn, who owns it?
Martha.
Oh,
Aquavella.
that's right. Aquavella still has it.
Aquavella still has it, yeah. She lent it for the show. That was a show with David Marvish here. And a lot of those Andre picked for Zurich. The recent ones seem to tail down. They seem to change.
The balloon works like
that. Somebody said the other day that gets to be almost too landscapey or skyscapey.
So what? As long as
That's what I said. I still think it stays pretty flat.
And
That's that sponge stuff I'm trying to get cloud-like.
Never saw that one either. Good picture.
I'd done a lot of tight ones up until that point, and then I wanted to go easy, freer. So they're just dribbles off the rug at home in the old studio. Just took a section of it and tried it up big. Something happens when you look sideways, eh?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it helps looking sideways on this one. I think it helps looking sideways.
Does it?
Yeah.
On that one?
Yeah.
What, it brings it in a little closer together?
Yeah. Something. And it unbalances it more.
Yeah.
I don't like the purple
Terry's
line.
raving about that purple line.
I don't
I was almost
like it.
tempted to say no, he couldn't use it.
Well, we should have. Search yourself.
I didn't.
No, I don't like a purple line. That's an art lick.
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Because that's the way I feel about it.
Well,
and a lot of people have asked, have you done any more with that type of line?
Yeah.
I said, no, I had it. I didn't want to use it.
Goes to show, doesn't it? Yeah.
Well.
And that's a good picture.
Yeah, good. I'm pleased with some of these earlier ones, how well they hold up.
Oh, yeah, that picture.
Yeah.
Both of them, as a matter of fact. And that one. Who owns that? Yeah.
That's Vincent. That's Vincent. That's Vincent. And that's Vincent, the green fin.
Yeah. I never saw that picture before.
I didn't either.
Who had
somebody
at
at Beaconhold or somebody in out west, Saskatchewan, something.
Oh, right. Well,
yeah. When we get a catalog.
Again, you got to get hit on.
Yeah.
Did you see that picture at an angle and it loses so much? Yeah. Yeah, at the foot marks here, where the spectator, the right distance.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Stand here for 5 minutes.
No, as long as you please, but this is where to stand. Yeah. And the color on that one keeps coming in.
Yeah. Peachy.
Sure it does. Talk about close value. Look at the dull orange and the pink. Yeah.
Repeat on the red pink there, too.
Where's Alex? I'd like to tell her.
Alex?
This is,
You see, so Carson?
You want to see close valuing? You see the orange and the pink. And then the green comes in sort of thinner.
Yeah.
And surrounded by the brown. It's like a lesson in that.
Well, the purple, there's the two reds there sort of do the same thing.
Yeah. I don't, that's not a formula or anything, but it shows you where you're at.
Yeah.
You don't have to observe it.
I didn't do it on purpose either.
Of course you did. Who does anything on purpose when you make
sure.
good art?
For damn sure.
You know? It's all
That's what amuses me when everybody wants to say, well, what were you thinking when you painted that? What was your intention? I didn't have any.
Intention is painting.
Yeah. That's
all you try to do is make it good.
Damn right. 1962 to 64, 65 was the Sash series. And to me, that's kind of interesting because my prices have risen slowly on the advice of my dealers, etc. I'm not nearly as expensive as a lot of Canadians who aren't nearly as good as I am or as well known. But in that Sash series, which were priced in New York in 1963, say, at $1,000 for a, 7-foot by 5-foot canvas. Just recently, I was talking to a dealer in Montreal, and he found a Sash picture with my dealer in New York, Andre Emmerich. But the price was a little heavy for him because it was $9,500. And I didn't keep any of the Sash pictures for myself, damn it. But my current price for that size, right today, would be about what, Alex, 4,000? Whereas the scarcity already of this Sash series has got the asking price up to damn near $10,000. And I don't gain a nickel out of it. Somebody's making money, but I have no quarrel with it. No, I'm lucky. I got the bread for painting a picture, even at $1,000. That saved me. Over here is 58. That's the two that sort of lead into it.
Where are those pictures that Jack...
Did you two met when you did those paintings?
Yeah. Yeah, this is 58. We met the year before. And this one comes from New York. That's the St. Moritz Hotel where we stayed there. And the Café de la Paix, which is red, white, and blue French flag things, and all the tablecloths and so forth are in that color. And the woodwork is that lovely dark brownish sort of woodwork. The curtains hanging down were the yellow over there, and the little jazz bit there comes from Chanson d'amour, the musical piece, the record at that time, which was very popular. It was on the radio all the time.
Where
So
are
the
those
musical
pictures
titles again.
you gave Mabel? Remember?
Oh, David,
Early
the
ones.
flower ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, David has them on. He
Why
owns
weren't
them.
this on?
I don't know. But they've never been shown anywhere. David's never shown them
Oh,
to anybody.
they should have put two of them.
They could have
in
been.
the show, I think.
I would like to have seen a couple of the Totem series in this show, too. I had 2 years on the Totem before it went to the feather type thing. One show in New York and one show here with David.
Andre, what do you think of that picture?
I don't like it as much as, say, these two here.
Yeah, I think it's one of the masterpieces of the show. Yeah. Really, really, wow. Jack, who owns that?
This one?
Yeah.
Terry Fenton, out in Edmonton.
Yeah,
he
that's
got that
right,
from
you told
Dan.
me. Yeah, you told me.
That's the one that Dan.
Yeah,
Oh, Dan Christensen. Yeah.
And Dan Christensen, too. This is one of them. Dan could pick bushes.
That's the way it was painted. That's the way it was shown first. Somehow, the title got changed from School Tie to School Tree. The painting got turned upside down, which is the way Dan had it, and the way that Terry Fenton has had it. And then I come along and put it that way, because my records say that way, and it's that way in the catalog, in color. So who knows which is right, up or down?
Oh, whoever owns it can take...
That's right, they can,
sure. The gallery.
Well, that's what I had to
Edmonton
decide on.
can,
When this problem came up, I had to decide. I painted the goddamn thing. I'll put it my way, the way I want to see it. Terry can turn it back the other way. if he
Yeah,
wants
for
to.
fun.
Sure.
Put pictures around the clock.
Sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
3 days one way, 3 days another, 3 days the third way.
Week in, week out.
Also, yeah.
Well, it's amazing how many of them sort of work two ways.
Yeah. When a picture's good enough, it'll work two ways. You won't be denied.
Nope, that's right.
If you put that picture on the side, it wouldn't be denied.
Probably not.
Okay, something's hitting. It's not only the color, something
Well,
else.
that bonnet picture and the yellow over there.
Yeah.
That was a horizontal with the blue on the left-hand
And
side.
so was the beige
And so was the
green.
gray, sure.
Yeah, and it worked equally well.
See the stain coming through? When I started to paint this way and show this way, the art public would see the back of a canvas if a dealer brought it in, and the stains going through. So that would kill a sale, kill a painting there. Absolutely, you see. Because they'd heard that anything that went right through the back would rot the canvas. I don't know. So I phoned up Jules Zaleski in New York, and he said, Jack, I ran into the same trouble. He said, the way I solved it was to, when the painting's finished, reverse it, then put a heavy coat of latex paint, white, on the back of it. He said, then the sales went fine. There's tricks in all trade.
I want to make the point again about,
Okay.
That's
a good point
right angle
to have made, too.
vision. Yeah, it's
That one over there is the same way.
that one's gone. You got to get head on.
Yeah.
Especially coming here, it gets too spindly, too skinny at this angle. Look at the red narrowed down, like.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
You
it
look
gets
at the
too
red.
tight.
Dimension. Now, if you're
Oh,
staying
yeah.
right here,
Just pinches right through.
right here, and it expands now. See, widens.
Well, a painter can't take that into consideration when he's
No,
painting.
you can't. But son,
Because he's flat ahead of it.
but you're always looking at it when you back off.
Ah,
From head on.
That's right.
You
well, maybe we
sometimes
could
you do
also
this,
look at the side and see what happened.
Yeah, you can, but in this case, I don't think you did.
No, I didn't, for sure.
You didn't have
We
room
didn't
enough
have room
in your
enough.
place.
That's for damn sure.
No.
We didn't have room enough.
Yeah.
Oh.
You and Miro, Miro had painted the kitchen in his family's house in Barcelona.
Oh, yeah.
He couldn't back away more than 7 feet. He said it was good.
Yeah.
Kept him from getting self-conscious. Yeah.
That's a point. Some years ago, I was advised by his close friends and the painters that I love in New York, etc., don't, quote Mr. Greenberg, don't say anything about him because there's so many people in the art world in New York that are out to get him. Where I try and give him credit by talking to you, for instance, what a great effect he's had on my development, which is true. They use it and twist it in reverse. That anybody that agrees with him or goes along with him and his taste and his judgment, that he's king and we're just, slaves that do what he tells us to do. So I stopped then ever referring in public to Mr. Greenberg, and for the records, I just want it known. That's why I don't like to talk about him, because, not that I don't want to, I do, but it's because the harm it does him.
The sort of malicious stories around, I gathered that I would tell Jack how to paint, and nothing could be less true. After that first moment when I told him he ought to get rid of the New York licks and all that, and that maybe this painting thin on raw canvas was a good antidote. Every move he made after that was on his own, and you just didn't tell Bush how to paint. Well, you don't tell anybody how to paint, but you certainly didn't tell Bush. And every move from then on was his own. And I'd come to Toronto and he'd show in New York, and I'd be surprised. I'd be as surprised as anyone else.
Do you think Jack has really had an influence?
Oh, an extreme influence. It's hard to say how his influence has been felt. Certainly the fact that he hung around with all the younger artists and went to all their shows, it had quite an impact on all of us. Not so much on our styles of painting, but certainly in attitudes and things like that, about how good we could be or how good we are. Jack helped immensely.
Having been born, brought up, and taught with a solid academic background, that is, to draw properly, not the way they draw, we call drawing today, that's another way of drawing completely, but to draw the figure in proportion, and to paint landscapes well, to paint portraits well, and then to get this urge to experiment with something current or challenging is a better word. What would happen if I, drop this conservative way of approaching a painting and get it a little more daring, or a little more upsetting is a good word too, because your best work, when you do it, will always upset the art public, because they're a couple of years behind you. So I've run the gamut right clean through that, right up until this far. I don't know how much further I can go.
I think that some of the most original color I've seen in painting of our time, the green gold in this picture, the mottled gray beige on this one, the different kind of gray, pink, beige. And in abstract painting, one of the rules is you don't take chances with the illusion of the third dimension, normally. The shapes in the green background picture remind you of pieces of paper, and they cut out into space. And ordinarily, that breaks the unity of the picture. But he has taken the chance with those cards, as it were. Look how the vermilion one pokes out as though it was fluttering to the ground along with the other. And yet it stays in place. And as I said before, if you take those chances and get away with them, that's where that's how the best art is made. And this, aside from the fact, this technical feat, aside from that, it's the color in these pictures. Bush's color, nobody else has color like this, as I've said it before. Look at that color. And of course, there's an added reason for regretting Jack's death when so short, you know, when that's the way he was painting up to practically the last day.
That's part of why I feel so strongly about artists, say they're pretty good Canadian artists, who make this protest. Goes back to Harold Town again. I'll be damned if I'll show my work to any American art critic. We're just as good as the Americans. Look, we're showing here, we're showing all across Canada, and Canada's just as good as New York or London or Amsterdam or anywhere. That's got nothing to do with it. It's simply this. The basic thing is this. The difference between minor league baseball and major league baseball. If you got enough nerve and are good enough, you can play in the majors. And I'm going to quote a wonderful story of Kenny Nolan's. When I came back from 2 months, a Canada Council Fellowship to Europe, which I never thought I'd ever see, Ken said to me, he said, well, what did you see that really inspired you or shook you? And I said, oh, God, Kenny, those wonderful old masters that all over in the Prado and everywhere that I'd seen in reproduction but never stood right in front of it. I said, that's fantastic. He said, oh, no, that's not what I mean. He said, the current guys, the current painters, the living painters right now. Oh, I said, that's easy to answer. I said, in Zurich, the 4 40-foot high, 4 feet wide collages by Matisse, and he'd done them in his early 80s before he was almost in a wheelchair, as I remember, right? And he cut out the pieces of paper in his bed and have his assistant place them. And he said, no, no, not there, down here. And I said, oh, my God, Ken, that just killed me. He said, yeah, he was a pretty good painter, wasn't he? And I said, oh, wow, he's just out of this world, that's all. He said, Jack, why don't you go beat him? And I kept quiet. And he laughed and walked away. And I thought about that, you know, for a long time. And then I thought, well, what have I got to lose? Let's go try beat Matisse. He won't mind at all. So I got rid of that fear of trying to be the best artist in the world. You'll find lots of artists that will claim they're going to be the best artist in the world. That I've never done and never will. But I'm doing it silently, if I can make it. And that was the greatest piece of advice that Nolan ever gave me. He said, the purpose of the whole thing is to knock the ball out of the park.